Now that I have my repository generated for this website, I want to add in the standards. Or rather, what I want to do is I want to get my website started using Jules, because Jules is going to provide me all the blocks of code that I need to just have the foundation laid, so I don't have to spend forever building it out. Once I have the foundation laid, then all I have to do is go in and tweak it to how I want it to be. So I spent about an hour or two mapping out how I want my site to be, and then thinking of as many things as I can. Setting these Next.js standards, 10 of them, or rather 9 of them, because I want the code to be production ready. I don't want it giving me a bunch of nonsense that I have to go back and get up to production grade rather. So let's not do that. I provided everything to Jules, standards and my design specifications, how I want the tone of the website to be. I provided my logo. I told it how I wanted the logo to be designed. So now we just have to wait for Jules to get back to us with the proper blocks of code so that I don't have to do all that stuff. And once I see where I'm at and I double check and enforce that the standards were upheld, then we can really get down to business and probably save ourselves a lot of hours. As you can see, Jules got busy. We got our theme.css, our hero.tsx, all seems to be on brand. So we got quite a bit of this build already out of the way, but we still need our TSConfig.json and a couple extra web pages that I'll add on in different tasks. As you saw me, I manifested this entire JellyWeb scaffold in seconds, really. Once we got down to packages, SRC, organisms, we needed to add a marketing folder, because this is specifically my website where I'm marketing my software, hosting my blog. So the scaffold here is for the pattern, and then as an architect, you're choosing the purpose behind the pattern and what you need to add and how you need to customize it. So since we're building a storefront, we need a dedicated space for our conversion engine, and that's why we created organisms marketing, and then we're also going to need our layout. And by separating marketing from layout, we're also ensuring that when we want to change the footer across 10 different subsites, we know exactly where it is. When we want to A/B test a new hero section, it's isolated. So this is how you manage a project so it doesn't manage you, so it doesn't get the best of you. And also, we could have just named these component A or component B, but we're choosing clear folder names because they describe exactly what the code is doing for the business. And also, it's just smart engineering to have very clearly labeled folders. So now we're just going to move all these files that Jules generated for me into their proper place within my packages directory. We can move our files like this: UI_kit/srcs organism/marketing x. So now we just want to take all of Jules's work, which should be good. We'll see. We want to look inside that directory. Now we just want to take everything that is from there. So CP recursive, meaning get all folders, and preserve, meaning keep all settings. So Jules web packages take everything inside this Jules web packages vault and then merge it into our permanent package vault. And just like that, we should be good to go. Organisms, marketing, and there it is. Layout inherited the footer. So we didn't just move the files. We replicated them from the temporary Jules folder down here into our main architecture. And the other thing is, by using CP instead of MV, which we use down here, we keep all these source files safe until we are sure the build is clean, and we're not going to burn the bridge until we've crossed it. So that's just a clean way of moving those files. Remove Jules web from our workspace. We no longer need that. We want to look inside our project folder. We want to find anything ending in this ghost name, zone.identifier, and we want to delete it. Because if you see all these zone identifier files that I've now brought into my code, or rather into my scaffold, these files are the digital fingerprints left by Windows because we downloaded this code from Jules on the web. And we want our build to be high level, so we don't want any noise polluting our repository. We don't let Windows metadata pollute our Linux-based project. So by running a recursive purge, we are purifying the source here, as you just saw, and we only want the code that Jules wrote. We don't want the baggage that Windows decided to add on to it. And so by keeping this repository meticulous, when we push to GitHub, our repository, our history is 100% clean logic. No sense. And so we move my Jelly logo into the brand area so that all on Jelly logo. I want to make sure our logo is in both spots where I just added it. There it is. You see all these red lines here? That's what happens when your import dialect doesn't match your export dialect. Just that Jules exported these components as default exports, the whole package at once. I tried to import them as named exports, specific pieces. In a meticulous architecture, you have to be consistent. So we're going to fix it by removing the curly braces, telling the system just give me the whole component as Jules designed it. So notice we had a lot of those red squiggles vanish, and that's because I just gave the system a dictionary. So we don't just write the code, we have to configure the environment. So we created a global, or we're going to create a global.d.ts, which is a file to tell the TypeScript that CSS isn't just text, it's a module of our brand's DNA. By building the TSConfig, we've officially told the compiler, look at the React rule set, treat these tags like the high-level organisms. We aren't fighting the machine, we are aligning the machine with our intent. You see this sh1 next to not found, so that is an execution gap. We defined the dev script in our package.json, which is like writing start engine on a dashboard, but we hadn't actually installed the engine itself into this specific cell of our Monorepo. By running npm install right here, we are performing a binary manifestation. We are pulling the high-performance Next.js framework into our local architecture. Sovereign engineering, we own the tools, but first we have to put them in the vault. So we got this unsupported engine right here, which means we're trying to run this with outdated engines, and so we have to update our environment. So we got that upgrade. We just have to restart the terminal. So type this in, and that should be good. VM install 20. Must be ridiculous. It is. Moment of truth. So we opted out of telemetry so that they're not collecting data from our machine because we want to be offline first and sovereign. Sweet. We are good. Node V version 20.20.2. That is great. We want to remove node modules. Want to cleanly install npm. Our architecture was too advanced for node 18, so we switched it up to node 20. And so we just performed a surgical environment swap. Now our tools can help us reach our ambitions, and the 4 errors that we saw, those were just ghosts of an incompatible engine. So we just had to upgrade our engine so that we can actually run this thing. So why you see the spinning down here at the bottom, when before we were installing npm and nothing was spinning, is that when we were on the old node for engine 18, it only added 32 packages because that engine wasn't compatible with the modern Next.js 16 requirements. It gave up almost instantly. So now that we're on node 20, npm is actually doing the heavy lifting, which is why you see that. It's pulling down the hundreds of sub-engines, dependencies required to run a high-performance turbo pack environment. It's downloading the code for React, Next.js, and our TypeScript types. It's also creating the node modules folder for the vault where our app's power will reside. And it's compiling the binaries, the .exe equivalents for Linux, so that the next command actually works. So we run a command called top. We opened up a new terminal, scrolled down, opened up Ubuntu, and all of these things that are downloading and everything that's happening right now in our install. So we don't have to wonder or guess about what's going on and when the terminal will be done because it's downloading a lot of stuff. So you can hang out, watch the show, go do something else, and we'll tune back in when this is done. All right, so we added 28 packages in 46 minutes. And unfortunately, that is not right. Should have been a lot more packages, which means because that was wrong, we went back to JellyWeb, and we're going to try this again. Jeez. So we upgraded our node to version 20, but the root of our project was still blind. So it didn't know it was a monorepo. So when I ran this npm install, the root, it looked around, saw nothing to do, and added 4 basic packages. So now by adding the workspace packages, what we're basically doing is when we run install, the machine will reach into every cell and sync the entire ecosystem at once. So now we go back here, try again. All right, now let's get this done for real. So this npm verbose reify, these aren't errors. Next.js is a universal engine. It tries to download binaries for Windows, Mac, and ARM processors just in case. Since we're on a Linux WSL2, it discards the others. So this is actually the system correctly filtering out the parts that it doesn't need. And these epipe errors, that was the friction that we've been talking about, where our network connection or the Windows WSL bridge was struggling to keep the handshake because the antivirus was likely still trying to peek at the traffic. But since we insisted and told Microsoft we're doing this stuff anyways, the machine eventually pushed through and allowed us to add 30 packages in 37 minutes. So glad I got up, didn't stick around for that. Now it just seems like a low number, but in a workspace, npm often reports only the top level packages. So the hundreds of sub packages are likely already inside of our vault. So in lesser architecture, the system would have collapsed, but we applied the clean slate protocol and we aligned our workspaces and forced the installation via a sovereign admin terminal. We're not just running a website, we're initializing the JellyWorks storefront. The dependencies are locked, the engine is tuned to node 20, and now we're officially going to be operational. So we finally sparked the engine, but we hit a cascading logic error because Next.js is a strict governor. It doesn't allow us to inject our global CSS into individual cells or pages. Why? Because in a sovereign monorepo, styles need to be centralized to maintain the visual integrity of the entire system. We just performed a neural rerouting. We moved our theme.css index page into the app wrapper. So we moved our CSS to the app wrapper, but the browser was still looking at a cache version of the failure, so our TypeScript brain was blind. It didn't have a map to the packages folder, which it needs. So we just performed a neural remapping where we updated the TSConfig.json to give the system a clear path to our UI kit. We then flushed the .next cache, the short-term memory of the engine here, and that was to ensure that when we spark the ignition right now, we are seeing the true reality of our code, not a ghost that's stuck in the machine that's messing with our code. So let's see what we got. All right, so we had to bypass Windows and their security by excluding my path right here so that they won't mess around with my files anymore and I can actually get this install done. So we remove the friction and we make it pass the fetch. So what we're looking at here with the task manager is we want to see this VMMEMWSL. We want to see the CPU usage happening. The CPU is working, then we're hoping that it's writing to the disk right now and that this does not mean that we're just frozen in the terminal. So basically I'm just going to let this work and then hopefully I come back and see success. So you see this enotempty error right here? That is what happens when your virtual world, which is this WSL2 that we're running, clashes with our physical world of Windows. So the system tried to move a folder, but Windows was still holding on to it. And in sovereign architecture, we don't wait for the machine to let go. We just perform a forced purge. So we wipe the slate clean at both the governor root and the worker app levels. We are going to remove the friction so that we can manifest the engine without compromising. And we're off. And right now we just performed a kernel reset, because when you're building architecture like this on a hybrid system like WSL2, you occasionally hit an IO deadlock. So the machine was stuck in a wait state because 2 operating systems were fighting over the same folder. So we didn't wait to figure this out. We just executed a system-wide shutdown, cleared the locks, and are now running a deep scan manifestation using verbose We removed the noise to give the machine total focus. And being operational always means knowing when to clear the room so the work can get done without friction. And so this is what AI generated chaos looks like. This was about the first version that I got. You can see these blue links at the top and everything shoved to the left side, and my nice jellyfish just plastered over everything. And that's because AI gave me the parts, but it didn't give me the engine. There was no bridge. So it was just raw text sitting in a void. So getting this up and running really started at the hardware. I had to tell the OS to stop tracking my paths so that I could build my own workspaces. And this is how you tell the machine, hey, I'm the operator, don't get in my way. And so we had to do that first. And some people have a global.css, I have a theme.css. And so we had to we had to add an at import for this Tailwind CSS so that could actually work, because that essentially is our engine and that's going to get everything rolling. These at sources, these are scouts that are going and finding the code using these paths. And then that theme is the thing that's really defining the brand. As you can see, it's got all of my color codes here. In the protocol at layer base, well, this is what's killing the blue links at the top that I showed you earlier when we went to the site. So I'm used to Python. Unlike in Python, these aren't decorators, they're more like directives. And they are key to helping us actually hydrate the site with everything that's going to make it look good. And this import inter here is important because this is the switchboard. And so we're sending our HTML or the bones from the server, and we're hydrating the nervous system in the browser. And this is what is going to give our website here a high performance feel. And then the final bridge was this at Tailwind CSS / post CSS, which is important because this is really the translator. It's turning all the logic in my vault into that nice aesthetically pleasing front end that we'll see in a moment. And there it is. Shrink myself down in the middle so that you can see everything. And this is really good. It's hydrated, unlike that text that was all smushed to the left and that big giant jellyfish that was not nicely pulsing. It's just supposed to be a nice pink pulse. This is a little abrasive, but we'll fine tune it. That's the thing. But it mostly got my messaging right. Offline first, hybrid second, operational always. That's the key. That's the point. Nothing takes your operation down is the goal. Total operational control, AI on your hardware. It's not wrong. Uncapped leverage, 100x scaling potential. Guess that depends on what you're doing. Absolute sovereignty, zero data harvesting, aside from people paying a subscription fee, or if I set up my Ocean Jelly Syndicate on people's hardware at their house, if they want to have their own AI syndicate for their own operations and keep their data offline, or just make sure that when the grid goes down, they're still functioning. Yes, that is what I'm building. And then it set me up with some nice blocks here that are pretty on brand. And then here will be my free tentacles, which I'll be building these for you soon. Shark guard, nice memory vault. And then the pricing is not correct. JellyRepo is going to be a small amount every month, $5 or $10, depending on how many repositories you want to buy and need on a monthly basis. So very cheap, very reasonable. The Ocean Jelly, it's not quite right. It depends on what your operations are and what problem I'm solving. So this is not going to be quite right. Obviously, you have to price private software based on the problems that you're actually solving for somebody. You can't have one standard set because you don't really know what the scope of the projects are sometimes. And then Astro Jelly, as an astrologer building my own astrological software, I am going to be coming up with a whole ecosystem of astrological software. Aside from having to pay once every 30 to 31 days to keep your subscription flowing, you could be offline with my products for that 30 days. Or if you pay for the year, you could be offline with my products for the entire year and only need to surface once just to make sure that obviously you pay for the license of the software. But look at these operational protocols. That's right, I don't touch your data aside from an email you give to Lemon Squeezy or what I need to process a payment. That's it. Obviously, this just brings us back to where we were at, and it will have to be refined, but for the most part, what a difference. And I'm obviously not JellyWorks. It's just my website name, JellyWorks Offline. It'll be just Jelly because this is Jelly software. And that's that. Get these buttons working. We'll put up drop downs for my free tentacles for the different products in my ecosystem. But overall, this is my first Next.js build and took me a day or so more than I wanted to troubleshoot the bridge. But I must say, this is pretty cool when you actually get it working. And for a while, I was not sure if I would get it working. All right, so that's that. I'll be back with another part in this series when I start to build the rest of it out and when I actually hook up everything. But so far, so good. And I will see you next time.